Hey everyone, welcome to Exercise Check. In this video, we're going to be going over Thymeleaf that can be found in 11.10. So let's get started. Starting in 11.10, like always, in our first paragraph, we're going to be using the coding events project in IntelliJ. So go ahead and make sure that you have this open. I have it open here in a separate window. We come down here and it says we need to check out a new branch off master called My Exercises Solution. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I create that and I have my new branch. One thing I do want to call out that there were 9 previous sections to this chapter. A lot of them do have videos and good content that you'll need to watch in order to do this exercise. So do make sure that you completed those videos as well as that reading before you watch this video. So once we have that branch created, we're going to be getting a little bit more intricate with Git. We're going to be going through the log it says, and then we're going to be resetting it back to a specific commit. That specific commit that we're looking for is when we were finished creating a static event list. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to a terminal, and I see that I'm already in my coding events project directory, and then I'm going to say git log. This is going to bring back all the previous commits we've had in our project, so I'm going to find the one that we had that static list of events. I know the static list of events was before we started doing this create event, so I know the commit that I want to reset to is going to be this one. So I'm going to copy that. I then come down here and I say git reset -- hard, and then the commit ID. Press enter, and now we've reverted our code. Let's go ahead and go back now, and we see that our code automatically updates in IntelliJ. This is the code that we had previously, like our exercise wants. So great, let's go back and see what else we have to do. So it looks like we have to start adding descriptions to our events. It says we need to comment out our previous code in the display all events method. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to comment out all of that, but I'm going to leave the return here uncommented out because if I comment this out, then this method is going to start complaining to me. I don't like errors, so I'm going to keep it like this. So in the videos, we learned to make templates to display elements in a static list called events, but let's make our events variable a hash map to enable us to add descriptions to our events. All right, so we come over here. So we want to create a new variable called events that we had here previously that was a list, but we want to create a hash map. So let's go ahead and do that. So I say hash map. It's going to be the name of event, which is a string, as well as a description that will also be a string. And then I'm going to call it events. Perfect, we've created our events. So it looks like we need to fill in this hash map with 3 names and descriptions of coding events around town. All right, let's go ahead and do that. So the first one I'm going to put in here is an hour of code, and then place its description. Then 2 more. There we go. We've added 3 things to our events now, and finish this up by adding the events variable to the attributes of this model. So we say model.add attribute events, and then place in the events variable, which is the hash map here. Let's go back. Okay, so now it looks like we need to use the th block and the th each to put together the events that we just created and their descriptions into a table instead of an unordered list. So let's go ahead and do that. We come over here, and originally this is where we were putting all those events into an unordered list. But as our directions say, we no longer want to do that. We want to place it into a table. So that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to write table to start out our table. And as always, we needed to have a table header first. So first I put tr for table row, and then in here I put th for table head. And then we have a table head also for the description. All right, so once we have our table header here, we need to be able to put all of our events into our table body. To start that out, we are going to be creating a block of code in Thymeleaf that we want to insert into our HTML. In order to do this, we say th block. What this is going to do is that when it actually gets compiled, this HTML, this block will get removed. And whatever's inside of it that has been built, that's what gets injected, if you will, into the HTML. So in this block, what we're going to have to do is loop over all of our events inside of our hash map. To do that, we use the th:\each attribute. In here, we need to provide our loop variable, which I'm going to call event, and then call out our events variable. So now event will be every single entry inside of our hash map. And this is what we're going to be using to build each row of our table. As we know now, tr is the way we build a row. Now we need to put in two different cells for our table. First being the name of the event, and then second being the description. TD is how we build one of our cells, and how we inject text into here. So we use the th text attribute, and we say what we want to actually inject into here. In this case, I want to use the key of my entry of my hash map as the value here. So I say event.key. What this is going to do is that it's going to get the key out of this entry, event, and inject it into our TD, this new cell that we're creating. And now I want to do the same thing for the description, aka our value. And there we go. We are now building individual rows for each of the events in our hash map. I'm going to take out this UL below here, and I'm going to go ahead and run this. Once it's started, we come over here, we open up a new tab, and we say localhost 8080. We click on all events, and now we see we get a table built, has our event name and our description for CES, strange loop, hours of code, and the corresponding descriptions. Perfect, exactly what we need to see. Going back to our exercise, now it says we need to use fragments to store the addresses of each of the new tech hubs where all the programmers are hanging out. We have to use the th::replace in here as well, and we might need to create a new fragments HTML. That is absolutely correct because we actually removed all of those changes. So I'm going to create a new file here called fragments. Now in here, as always, for all of our Thymeleaf, we need to go ahead and get that code, take out our title, and now I want to put in 3 different addresses for our events. So what I do here is that that data that we're going to be injecting is going to be another cell into our table. So I'm going to say TD here. And then to name a fragment, we say th::fragment. We have to give our fragment a name. I'm going to call this one hour of code address. There we go. And now I'm just going to supply a random address into here for our text. Perfect. Now I'm going to do that for strange loop as well as CES. Awesome. There we go. We have our fragments in here. And now we have to be able to go over to our table and inject them somehow. So let's go take a look at that and see what we can do. All right, so we're over here in our table. First things first, I'm going to create a new header for our new column. I'm going to say address. So now down here, we need to be able to inject that fragment for that particular address for that particular event. So what comes to mind here is that I should be asking a question every time we're going through a loop. Is our event name equal to CES? If so, inject this fragment. When I ask a question, that typically means I want to provide a conditional or an if statement. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to have another th block. I'm going to say th if. And this th if statement is going to check a conditional for us. If it's true, it will actually show this th block. So in these curly brackets now, I need to provide a conditional. So what I'm going to say is event.key.equals. And then I put double quotes for string, and I see that some things are happening here. We don't want to actually have double quotes here anymore to contain our if statement. Instead, what I'm going to do is switch this to single quotes. I'm going to put double quotes here, equals, I'm going to say CES, close quotes, close our parentheses, close that, perfect. So now we have a block that will only show if the event key, the name of the event, is equal to CES. So inside of this block, this is where I want to inject my fragment. So in here I say TD, because that's the tag I want to use, and I say th::replace, because I want to replace this TD tag with one of my fragments. To do that, I need to call out the name of the fragment. It's in my fragments file, so I say fragments, double colon, and then the name of the fragment, which is going to be CES address. Perfect. So now if it's CES, it's going to inject particularly that CES address fragment. And now I need to do this for both strange loop as well as hour of code. All right, there we go. Let's go ahead and save this. And let's rerun our server and see what we get. We go over here, go back to our coding events, refresh, and now we have an address column with all those addresses that we provided in our fragments file. Awesome job. Let's go back over here. And finally, it says we need to add some CSS to make our table look a little bit easier to read and center it on the page. It looks like we might have to create a new styles.css file as well and make sure we connect it. All right. So we do not have a styles.css file. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new directory, and where we store our CSS usually is called in the static directory. And then I'm going to create that new file, styles.css. Perfect. All right, so in here, I can go ahead and create some styles now for my table. Well, first, I'm going to say my table header tags. I want their font size to be a little bit larger because we need it to be easier to read. I'm going to say font size. I'm going to say 28 pixels. I'm going to say my cells for my table are going to be a little bit smaller, but larger than they are now, just again for better readability. So I'm going to say 18 for that. And then finally, it said it wanted us to center our table. So what I'm going to say is table, I'm going to make our table be able to be centered. So I'm going to say margin. So I'm going to say margin left auto and then margin right auto. And to help us out a little bit, I'm going to call this center. So I'm going to make a class in my CSS called center that's only for table here. So now since I did that, I'm going to have to go back up to my index.html, come back up to my table and give it the class name, class equals center. Furthermore, this page is going to have no idea what we just did with our styles unless we hook it up, aka link it. So I'm going to say link in here. And then we need to provide an href using Thymeleaf. So we say href and tell it where to find all these brand new styles that we just created. So we say at styles.css. And once we type that, we say rel, and then we have to say style sheet. All right, so once it's all linked into our HTML, that means we can go ahead and run our server and see if it works. We come back over here, we refresh, and now we see that our text is quite larger, as well as our table is centered. So it's much more easy to read, as well as centered in our screen to make it look just a bit more pretty. Feel free to take it a few more steps further to get yourself back into the world of CSS. We're going to be creating more websites as we move forward, so it's definitely not a bad thing to get reacquainted with CSS. All right, so going back to our directions, let's go ahead and see if there's anything else that we need to put in here. It doesn't look like it. We need to do that styles, so it looks like we're good. All right, so now on to this bonus mission. So it says to try to add one more column to the table with pictures for your coding event. You'll need to use the href to pull in pictures in the appropriate template. All right, let's go ahead and do that. So we know that each picture is going to be unique for the particular event. The same thing that's also unique that we're pulling in is this fragment here for the addresses for each of our events. So what I'm going to do here is kind of play on that. In here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to change the TDs here to these TH blocks. And I'm going to put in this cell here into that. And I'm going to take this fragment name. It's going to now be in here. Perfect. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to take this address and then make another cell beneath it. And I'm going to say put picture here. And we'll get to that in a second. I'm going to make 2 more blocks. There we go. And then take those addresses. All right, perfect. So we're going to go back into the index.html. Up here, we're going to say th block. We need to replace these. Same thing down here. There we go, perfect. Let's go ahead and make sure this still works. Come back over here, come back to our coding events, refresh, and perfect. We have our pictures here. So it looks like our code is still working. So now what I'm going to do is up here, I'm going to put picture for a new table header. And now we have to go get some images for these events. All right, so we come up here, we come into static. What we need to do in order to have pictures is that we need to make something, we make a directory that contains all of them. So we say images in there, And then what I'm going to do is that I have a CES logo that I'm going to place in there. All right, and same with Strange Loop. Perfect. Now we have two of these. So I'm going to go ahead and start adding these in here. So for CES, what we want to do is that we want to go over to our fragments and we want to include the picture here inside of our cell. To do that, we need to use that image tag, img. Then we need to use that fun feature from Thymeleaf, which is th, and then we are going to say src for source. We use that awesome at tag, and then the curly brackets, and then we say /images, because that's the directory we put it into. And for CES, we say CES underscore logo dot PNG. Close those curly brackets, and then save. Let's go ahead and make sure that one worked. Come back over here, we refresh, and we see that our picture is there. What I'm going to do is that now I'm going to go into my styles, and I'm going to say if it's an image, I want the max size to be something reasonable. So IMG, I'm going to say height of 70 pixels and a width of 70 pixels. But I'm going to say max height and max width. So it can't be any larger than that. Let's go and save that, rerun this, come back over here and refresh. And now we see our picture is a little bit more reasonable size for this table. Awesome. So let's keep going on, going back to fragments. We're going to copy that code we just put up there. And then the next one we have is Strange Loop. So we're going to put it down here. I see that I did put CES under House of Code. So I'm going to actually take that, place that down here. We'll get back up to Hour of Code here in a moment. Down here for Strange Loop, we're going to change this to Strange Loop logo. Save that. And then one more thing I'm going to do here is that we're going to take this cell, put it back here, but instead of doing a direct image, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to just use a HTTP address for this. So I don't need that Thymeleaf. So I'm going to take out all this special stuff and go get a link for Hours of Code. So I went and got a link address. So I paste that. There we go. Go back to our website, refresh. I see that I have a misspelling here. This should be a JPEG. And it looks like I also copied the wrong address for this image. There we go. So let's go ahead and rerun this. Come back here, refresh. And now we see we're getting all of our images for these events. Awesome. All right, looks like that is it for this code. Going back to our exercise, that is all we have. So that being said, we are all done with this exercise. Awesome job. I hope this did give a little bit of more explanation into templates, into Thymeleaf, and how we're going to use it going into the future to make awesome websites. Thanks for watching.